Never. I'll never turn to the dark side. You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi.
Live, this is one. For the record, I'm Diana, and today is May 10th, 2013. And what the hell is going on with you two? I see it says feel free music with a space and a dot. My picture is not up there. I've been hacked or some bullshit. I am mad tonight. Oh yeah, just got off work. Where's my picture, YouTube? I'm going to tell you guys something real quick. I am attaching a video, so stay tuned. I don't know what's going on with this Google Plus. I'm going to tell you, ever since I did that report a few days ago, the one that I gave information on, I don't think politicians should run over 10 years. Alrighty then? Then they decided I'm not going to run over 15 minutes on my videos. Now it's just been hell on earth with YouTube, okay? I want my picture back up there, YouTube. I didn't change it. It shouldn't say feel free music with a space and a dot. What is that? Okay, I am getting very upset. So let's move on to the news now. This has been nothing but it fell all apart. Fell all apart with this stuff. And I still say it. Politicians, there are no career politicians. These laws are going to affect you too, because after 10 years you go back to being a citizen. If you make it to president, you got eight more years, and that's as president. If you don't make it by 10 years up to president, then that's it, you're done. Alright? No more incumbents. You know, that's where the problem is. It's not at the top with the president. Has to do with all this other stuff with the below him and down. Alright? That are also making these laws and strangeness. Alrighty then. So that's the answer. I told you, the economy, because if they have to go back to work after being a politician, they'll think twice before outsourcing the jobs and everything else. Alright? There you go. Okay. Alright. Now let's go into the news. Let's go into, let's see here, the watchers watching the world. Second M-class solar flare of the day, M1.3, erupted at 12:56 UTC time. Impulsive M3.9 solar flare off the east limb. Large prominence eruption and strong C-class solar flare. So lots of solar flares, heads up. Subglacial volcanoes help scientists reveal climate change's secret. Pacific's Marshall Islands facing drought disaster. Alrighty then. Moving on. I will be attaching videos. Stay tuned, even if this is only 15 minutes. Oh boy, am I mad today. Outbreak of mice vector hemorrhagic fever reported in Argentina. Attacks in rural areas. Okay, we're done with that. I did that yesterday. Moving on. E&E News, the Energy News. Footage of breach at giant Louisiana sinkhole, water rushing through gaping hole. Heads up today. Also, officials, 5 breaches overnight at giant Louisiana sinkhole. Water levels not stable. Continues to fill sinkhole and contaminant area. Alright. Someone changed my stuff around. I'm very upset right now. I'm going to have to put a different picture up there and everything else. Also, emergency decontamination needed in places used by Fukushima kids. Highly radioactive material accumulating. City officials many times higher than previous record for urban areas. Also, TEPCO to demolish makeshift cover at Fukushima reactor number 1. Trying to remove radioactive material will take 4 years for a new one. Alrighty then. So, hang in there. I'm still not doing my report at home. I am going to have to go to McDonald's or somewhere to go do the report. I don't know where I'm going to go, but you can get free Wi-Fi at McDonald's. So I'm gonna do something, because I'm gonna have to change some of this information. Take care and stay tuned.
We are featuring this hour an interview with Dr. Christopher Busby, an expert on radiation in Fukushima, who has been very outspoken about the dangers of even low levels of ionizing radiation from not just the Fukushima disaster, but other radiological events. And he joins us by Skype now to give us the latest breakdown on radiological weapons, a little bit of update on Fukushima, and some thyroid problems in children, a few other points as well. Welcome to the show, Dr. Busby.
Yes, hello. I'm talking to you from Riga. I headed off to the woods, and I'm now in the woods in my little house in Latvia.
Oh, really?
And what I want to talk to you about, really, I mean, it's my main thing, but I'll just plug it again, is what I see as and what actually is the biggest human health public health scandal of all time, which is this release to the environment by scientists since 1945 of all these radioactive substances like strontium-90 and plutonium-239 and cesium-137 and all that. And this whole umbrella of this radiological public health scandal covers all of the things that I've researched in the last 20 years. Fukushima, Chernobyl, nuclear increases in childhood cancer near nuclear sites, contaminated sea. We've done work on the Baltic Sea, on the Irish Sea, and most recently, of course, I've been involved in looking at depleted uranium and even some kind of new enriched uranium weapon which has been deployed by the Israelis in Lebanon and also in Fallujah, as we found out and published in the literature. So it's made me public enemy number one, of course, amongst the people who plug nuclear power stations.
Well, I'm sure. But if you look at the sources of all this, so you're talking about not only nuclear power, but nuclear weapons testing, obviously. Do you get into nuclear medical exposure?
Well, nuclear medical exposure is mostly external, and this is, and I think it's quite relevant for me to point out that it's not about low-level radiation. The argument is not about low-level radiation. It's about external and internal radiation, because actually radiation is measured in various units, millisieverts and millirads, and these units relate to energy that's transferred to the human body. So it's a physics-based unit that is used. And the big problem is that it doesn't work for internal radionuclides. And I can briefly explain why. The transfer of external energy, like gamma rays, into the body is the same as sitting in front of the fire and heating yourself and warming yourself up. You can get so many joules per kilogram of your body in terms of heat energy. But you could get the same number of joules per kilogram into your body if you reached into the fire and you ate a hot coal. And that's a very reasonable analogy with the difference between standing somewhere where the radioactivity level is slightly higher. So you've got external radiation, like from an X-ray machine or something like that, which is actually not, it may be low-level radiation, but it's not a big deal. But then ingesting or inhaling radioactive iodine, like for instance from Fukushima, or particles of depleted uranium from some weaponized use in Iraq, those things, those tiny particles and the internal radionuclides that damage the DNA, they are the serious problem, and that is the biggest public health scandal of all time. So, and it's, yes, sorry.
I just wanted to ask you the question. Yeah. So externally, the radioactive particles, you are subject to them via the inverse square law of distance,
exactly.
right?
So just like just like sitting in front of a light. Yeah.
Right. But then internally, your distance to the particle is zero.
Absolutely so. And a lot of these particles are alpha emitters too, which normally an alpha particle wouldn't pass through your skin. But uranium, for example, plutonium, they're alpha emitters, and they're sitting inside you, and so they only have a very short range, and they produce enormous local doses to cells. So it isn't at all low-level radiation. But the con is this, that the nuclear industry, or in fact the military who started this way back in the 50s, the con is that they dilute all of that energy into the whole body, whereas actually the energy is all in one place, usually on the DNA. Yeah. This is outrageous.
Well, in terms of internal sources, this is fascinating. I've got a lot of questions for you already, but in your assessment, is it a higher risk of internal exposure through inhalation of airborne particles, or is it through eating food?
No, it is more from inhalation. And the reason is quite simple, that over evolutionary timescales, the gut has found ways of excluding a lot of these radionuclides, because there are a lot of natural radionuclides like radium and uranium, thorium, and daughters of these substances which occur naturally. And the gut seems to be quite clever at keeping a lot of this stuff out. But if it's inhaled, it gets into the lungs. It goes through the lungs into the tracheobronchial lymph nodes, and then the lymphatic system can take it anywhere. And in particular, where it takes it is to the female breast, because that's quite close by. And so these particles get into the female breast. So we find high levels of breast cancer in people who live downwind or close to nuclear power stations, for example. I mean, there's an awful lot of hoo-ha about childhood leukemia near nuclear power stations. But nobody's been looking at adults who live near a nuclear power station for the simple reason that the cancer registries refuse to release the data. So we've had to knock on doors in order to do these studies.
So which radiological isotopes are more likely to be airborne? For example, downwind from Fukushima, is someone likely to inhale a particle of cesium?
No, uranium.
Just uranium.
All of the effects in Iraq are a consequence of the use of uranium weapons. I don't say depleted uranium weapons, because we've actually measured this stuff, and we found that since about 2003, since the second Gulf War, that they've been using ordinary uranium, or even slightly enriched uranium, which is something which is a bit odd, which we don't quite understand. And it may well be, and I've suggested this, a consequence of a new type of weapon, which is a fusion weapon. But I mean, whether that's true or not, certainly uranium is the thing that is causing the effects in Iraq. And my feeling is probably uranium particles are what causes the effects downwind of nuclear power stations, because at the end of the day, uranium is what they run on. Uranium is what they run on. I mean, I've done a number of studies, for example, up in America, around near Los Angeles, around the Santa Susana site there, the field laboratory, where people are all dying like flies all around there, and nobody seems to figure out how it works. But if you look through the data, if you look through the environmental reports of Boeing and Rocketdyne, who are the people who run the operation, you find that there's enormous amounts of enriched uranium in the air filters. But nobody looks at uranium because it's kind of thought to be natural and somehow therefore safe. But of course, the particularized version of it is certainly not natural, and it's certainly not safe.
What isotopes of uranium are likely to be airborne, and what kind of half-life are we talking about there?
Well, the half-life is 4.7 billion years. I mean,
oh well, that's a little more than a human lifespan. Yeah,
that's kind of quite a long time. The uranium. In fact, uranium is the problem that they have when they try to bury nuclear waste. I mean, another study that I've done is to look at the Swedish proposals to build a nuclear waste site underneath the Baltic Sea, which is already the most radioactive sea in the world. And by the time all of the other radionuclides like cesium and strontium and all the short-lived stuff has gone away, the uranium and the radium is still there, because those things have enormously long half-life. They have geological half-lives. Mm-hmm. But of course, the particles won't stay there forever. The particles are produced when the weapons are used, and they go up in the air, and then they land in the desert, and they hang around for quite a long time. And my feeling, they still are there. I was in Iraq in 2001. I went there with Al Jazeera, a lot of measuring equipment and everything, and I found a lot of depleted uranium particles there from the first Gulf War. So that was like 10 years later, yeah. Well,
we also see in the veterans who are around the DU weapons, they are exhibiting very high rates of cancer, and I think you even mentioned...
That's true. Yes, I've done some studies. I've been called in as an expert recently on a number of...
Never. I'll never turn to the dark side. You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi.